All right, I think we're just about there. So in just a minute, you guys are going to be able to see me and I'll be introducing myself. So, hey everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today and welcome to the virtual winery visit with the Freshwater Trust. My name is Michaelin Wonder, and for those who don't know me, I am the Associate Director of Development at the Freshwater Trust. We are a freshwater restoration and conservation nonprofit headquartered here in Portland, Oregon, as I mentioned. We've been working on behalf of healthy Oregon rivers since 1983, when we were first established as Oregon Trout. Our bread and butter is ensuring resilient freshwater ecosystems that can support our environment, our economy, and our communities. How we do that is both being the boots on the ground, implementing those types of projects, habitat restoration projects like you saw on the screen behind me earlier, as well as being the brains behind the scenes. We have a robust science and analytics team working to develop the tools and technologies so that we make sure we're doing the best projects in the best places for the best outcomes. We're really about increasing the pay scale and impact of all of that on the ground work that's happening in the real world. And we want to make sure it lasts. So Jesse and Jim, they have both been long-term partners and supporters of that mission and our efforts. So super delighted to have them with us tonight to talk about why water is meaningful to them and how it intersects with their own industry and work. So let's start then. Let's hand it over then to Jesse. Jesse Lange, he is a winemaker and general manager at his family's Lange Estate Winery and Vineyard, which was founded in 1987. He's an avid fly fisherman and fly tyer, as you can see here. And he also serves on the Freshwater Trust Headwaters Council, which is an advisory council of community ambassadors and advocates. Next up is Jim Prosser. He's the owner and winemaker at Carriere Wines. He's also a passionate fly fisherman as well, an outdoorsman, and he's been a supporter of the Freshwater Trust since its earliest days as Oregon Trout. So with that, I'm going to end the screen share, and then I'm gonna ask Jesse to start his live feed so we can see where he is right now, and give us a little intro as to where he is, what he's up to, and why he's been involved with the Freshwater Trust. So let's see if we can get Jesse online. It's important to note that we're dealing with some very remote feeds. So hopefully you guys are able to see all of us all the time. Hey, Jesse.
A lot of extension cords, no doubt. So yeah, everybody, welcome to Oregon Wine Country and Oregon Wine Month. Yeah, I'm Jesse Lange, so second generation wine grower, winemaker here. My family's estate property right here smack dab in the Dundee Hills. And while we try to have a lot of positive attributes, fashion isn't one of them. So my fly tying slide earlier, Michaela, I think this is exactly the same fleece North Face sweatshirt I was wearing 3 years ago. So apologize for that. But welcome out here, everybody, and just stoked that you're able to spend your afternoon with us. One of my favorite things about wine, probably my favorite thing about wine, is that it brings good people together. And during this definitely tough ordeal that we're going through, I think it's just it's kind of the power of wine to bring people together, even virtually, but that's certainly better than nothing. So it always fills me with a lot of bit of optimism and enthusiasm to be able to get to speak with people, to be able to have dialogue and discourse, and really appreciate you guys tuning in. And to Michaelin and to Carolyn, to thank you so much, and the Freshwater Trust for being able to tie Jim and I together and share some of our background, what we're doing on the farm and in the cellar, and basically kind of tie it all back into sustainability and the promotion of fresh water across the globe. So thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Jesse. That's a big bottle of wine next to your head. I couldn't not say anything about it, but excited to hear more about that in a few minutes. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to ping Jim and see if his video is going to be able to come up and get going, and then we'll get to see where Jim is, which I think is really just across the hill from you, right, Jesse?
I can almost see Jim's Chelan Mountains beautiful vineyard property just on the AVA, which is super close to here, probably about 3 miles as the crow flies.
Awesome. Well, we'll hopefully see Jesse pop up, or Jim, sorry. Jim, I'm going to do that a lot tonight, I think. Oh, there he is.
Small technical thing. We're actually not exactly on the other side of the hill. We're on the right side of the tracks. You know, where Jesse, I know you're on the wrong side of the tracks. Jesse and I have known each other for a long time, and so we like to share things back and forth. And yeah, so what about this place? J.K. Carriere's named my winery. We're out here at the top of the Chehalem Mountains, and it's pretty beautiful. We're glad to be coming to you. I am not the most technologic. I'm a janky technologist, I guess might be the way that I'd say that. So we'll see what happens. I know that Jesse set the bar pretty high at better than nothing, and that's what I'm aiming for. So we'll see what goes.
You're doing great, Jim. You're doing absolutely great.
All right.
All right. So what I think I'd like to start off with is I'm gonna toss it back to Jesse, and I'm gonna ask you to give us a little bit of a background as to how and why you got started with the Freshwater Trust and how you see that connection with the work you do out at Lange Estate.
Yeah, it's I think just kind of our general philosophy towards sustainability. It's something that kind of pervades everything that we do, from the vineyard site to production to our sales, across the whole board. It's sort of, I like to think it's vertically integrated, but it stems from a general philosophy and a foundation of giving back, of making sure that we promote sustainability across all channels in a way that affords us an opportunity to pass along a better planet and a better piece of property and a better brand to our next generation. So for me, it's really important. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. I have a son on the way. And I think for me, it's really even hits home more than ever, just that notion of being able to pass that along in ways that it certainly didn't in my 20s. So I'm giving you guys a shout from our Dundee Hills Estate property. This is my Red Side Vineyard, which is named after our native Central Oregon red band trout. We're here, got a lot of shoot growth out here, so I actually pulled this out for you guys. We're actually about to head into bloom in a couple weeks, so we got pre-emergent clusters here and about to head in flowering. We're all in Dundee Hills Jory soils here, so oxidizing basalt, and this site here is one of probably our earliest ripening vineyard site, but it definitely showcases a lot of those Dundee Hills characteristics that we all know, and is as good, but very different from the wines that Jim gets to produce there at Chehalem Mountains. So really fun to be able to represent two of the top AVAs in the state of Oregon and two of the top vineyards. So in terms of our background and history with Freshwater Trust, I remember the days when it was Oregon Trout, back in the heydays of Oregon Trout. So we were always supportive of a lot of the rivers that we fished, and a lot of the organizations that we supported. So I remember those days, but the Freshwater Trust we've continued to support. For some odd reason, I was invited to be a part of the Headwaters Council in 2016. It's been wonderful to be a part of that group of just amazingly diverse and very interesting group of industry leaders from across a breadth of different industries here in Willamette Valley and in Oregon, to see them collaborate and be kind of a sounding board for the Freshwater Trust group of people and employees, and for the entire organization. So it's really wonderful to be a part of that. And I just think it's part and parcel to our philosophy here at Lange Estate Winery to support organizations like the Freshwater Trust. And I'm always super impressed, not only by Michaela and Caroline, but by Joe and the entire team there. Just comes across as really, I think, impressive people across the board, and what you guys are doing on the ground is just incredible. So we're thrilled to be a part of it, and I think it's just a natural extension of who we are and what we do.
That's awesome. Well, cheers to that, Jesse. Boom. For those who can see this, I'm also drinking a glass of wine as well. So with that, Jim, let's toss it over to you, Jim. I'd like to hear. Can you share a little bit about your history with the organization and what water means to you?
Sure. I want to start first by panning the vineyard a little bit where we sit. So J.K. Carriere is the name of the winery, but St. Dolores Estate is where we're coming from right now. So this is my own 40 acres up on the top of Carriere Mountain.
Ooh, Jim, we're missing your audio a little bit. You'll have to move with the camera.
St. Dolores Estate is the name of this vineyard. It's our 40 acres that sits up on top of Parrot Mountain.
Great.
And it's a great place to come to work every day. The way that I came to Freshwater Trust, we're going to turn this thing back now. Freshwater Trust, I guess I was used to Oregon trout at first, and it seemed like I'd go to these auctions, these things, and it'd be a bunch of crusty old fishermen, like seemingly bidding on used waders that didn't smell so nice. It wasn't exactly that, but it was almost that. And it felt like a piece of Oregon. I'm from Bend. My home river is the Deschutes. And it was good. And then this, saw some changes happening, which is gonna go. Permutations came down to Freshwater Trust. I'm good friends with Joe. I've been to the bottom of a bottle with Joe. I've also been on a number of rivers with Joe. So good friends, but I'm actually a complete and total believer in the Freshwater Trust and their mission. Selfishly at first, because if we don't have water in rivers, I'm not catching fish. And that's kind of the original thing on the Oregon trout. But they've expanded my horizon about water and the need for fresh water and generations to come. And it all seems to, as Jesse says, tie well to what we think about as here at really kind of the top of the hill, not the bottom of the hill where all that stuff's flowing, but what's flowing from here. And so that's kind of the approach that we're taking with it. And it's funny because wine itself is 86% water. Right? Like I have these 3 bottles here. I have these 2 bottles here. And we'll clean that up later. But in order to get that, first I've got to get rain. It comes down, right? And it's going to go through here, flow through here, and it's going to float out of the rivers. I want it to go down the hill as clean as it came from the sky. I want to get in a boat and go down the river on it and cast my fly and actually catch something. So I have really total vested interest in the work that the Freshwater Trust is doing. I believe in supporting that. I try to do it to my best ability as a small business, and I can always give more. I'll try, Joe. I'll try. Anyway, that's kind of Freshwater Trust for me.
Well, I can say that we at least earned that bottle that just went over the side of your, now you've got a good place to stand. But Jim, you bring up a really interesting point that I think when you talked about being at the top of the hill, right? This idea that we all live upstream. And I think when talking about the practices that both you and Jesse as landowners, as in an industry that works so closely and recognizes that interconnection, can you talk about some of the different practices or ways that your management decisions impact that watershed and what's downstream? And I'll start with you, Jim, and then we can toss it over to Jesse as well.
All right, so I think there's a lot of things. Basically, it's almost a climber's creed of leave no trace. In the way that we're approaching stuff, though it's not exactly that. You can't farm and not leave any trace. But the things that you can do are be helpful to the environment. And I'm not an ideologue about it, but things like my wife and child and I will drink more wine off this vineyard than anybody ever will. And I don't want to put us in harm's way. So I'm not spraying Monsanto products under vine in the vineyard. We're an organic vineyard. I'm not certified organic, but again, I have to look myself in the mirror every morning and tell myself I'm not lying, and I'm not. We use a number of other things. What I'm really looking for and what I actually believe is that by using these good practices, you're actually helping take care of the soil. So sequestration by virtue of biochar. We're organic. We're interested in the soil food web, so we're not spraying a lot of things that are gonna mess with that. We're basically on a no-till or very low-till at times because of moles and field mice, if you will. We've got to take action, but basically we're not touching that. So my place doesn't look like a golf course. Nothing wrong with golf courses, but it takes a lot of chemicals to make that happen. And we're just trying to keep it all up here on the hill and composting, all kinds of bluebird projects. And, they're insectivores. Bluebirds just eat bugs, and that's perfect for a vineyard. And so we want to keep that going as well as we're looking at the ecosystem. So those are kind of some of the things that we look at. And again, like Jesse, I have a slightly older, a 10-year-old daughter who's Jesse's wife helped or was in the birthing room when she came into the world.
Oh, wow.
And so we want to preserve it for the generations that are coming.
Yeah, that's great. Jesse, I know that you guys over there at Lange Estate, you guys have, you mentioned to me the other day, there's 1,000,001 different certifications that vineyards can do. Can you talk a little bit about the ones that that Lange Estate chose and why?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discourse about, sort of parsing things too thin in the viticultural world. I mean, first and foremost, I think viticulture is on the vanguard for sustainability for agriculture on the whole. I think the Northwest leads the way in that in terms of our sustainable vineyards across the board for both Oregon and Washington, for any region in the world. You have sort of biodynamics, organics, and certified sustainable. We can parse them too thin. I think really you put them under the umbrella of responsible viticulture, I think is a better term. And instead of fighting between those silos, I think it's more important to get more vineyards and more acres under the entire roof. For me, that's really important. What we choose to do, we're sprayed organic. We're not organically certified. We're probably headed that direction, but right now we're under the Certified Sustainable Program, under the LIVE program, which is an acronym for Low Input Viticulture and Enology. As a byproduct of being LIVE certified, we're also salmon safe because of the inputs to the property here for our vineyard. We don't have a lot of the way of chemical runoffs, so we are salmon safe certified too. So all 45 acres of the Dundee Hills farms that we farm are all certified sustainable under that LIVE program, which I don't like the paperwork at all, and the spreadsheet is really frustrating at times, but we're huge fans of the program. And this program now was kind of founded here in Oregon, has I think about 350 different vineyards that are participating with almost 9,000 acres under the certification. So it's growing, and I think that's the direction we need to take for viticulture, but on agriculture on the whole. So I really like Jim's point about how he looks himself in the mirror every morning because his family, lives on the property. They farm the property. They drink a lot of the wine from the property. My family's exactly the same. And I don't think that, this notion of, a certified sustainable or certified organic really mattered to our parents or to Jim when he first started planting the Dolores Vineyard. It's really just a way of life. It's like, why would you poison your backyard? For me, it's sort of a parallel or a metaphor for the world on the whole. We really need to do a better job, clearly, of taking care of our planet. And taking care of your own backyard is the first step in that.
Yeah, I think this is something, what you guys are saying about taking care of your own backyard, or especially within the industry that you're in, and the work that the Freshwater Trust does with many other agricultural landowners, and their deep interconnection with water as a resource that's not just a thing to sustain their business, but their way of life and their family, and that deep respect for it, of wanting to ensure it's a resource that's around for many generations to come. And there's a lot at play at what influences that resource, which brings up a question from one of our registrants. Casey H is asking if either of you know yet how the weather or this winter spring has been affecting the crop. Specifically, I'd love to get into some wine nerdery here, if you will.
The weather we've had has been great for growing because it's been sort of a nursery effect where we've had a fair bit of sunshine and then a lot of rain, and it's intermittent every couple of days. So one fortunate byproduct of that, the vines are growing, like I said earlier, but the weeds are growing too. So trying to manage your weed load and your seed load for the following year, etc., can be a challenge. But I think that's part of, for at least for me, during this whole COVID ordeal, it's been nice to just have the farm sort of march along, and it's completely oblivious to what we're experiencing as human beings. For me, it gives me a big sense of normalcy to just continue to farm. So that's kind of what's going on. I'm
watching, this is wild to watch, your screen just get dark as this the like half of one of your screen is just dark cloud, and you're really committed to this, which is great. So I'd love to hear from Jim's side of things. You're looking like you still got a sunny patch, but how are you seeing what have the recent weeks been like for you out in the vineyard?
Well, I think it's good. I think we're slightly ahead based on whatever idea of normal you would have by a few days anyway. That April, warm, dry April really pushed the vines a bit. Jesse's right. We have to fight the weed war every year, and we kind of fought it once all the way to its death nearly, and now we're fighting it again. We're using an undervine knife in order to cut the grass, just to cut the big weeds and stuff under the vines and try and take it out so it doesn't grow up and take over. But I think, we started the year always in Oregon fully charged. Our soils are fully charged with water. So it goes off to a big start, and you're managing both weed growth and vine growth and disease pressure like powdery mildew and how to get that all done. What happens is actually you wish you could bank farming, but at this, before this, like February, March, those days you can get out on the tractor, you're like, yeah, this is great. Oh, wait, I'm all caught up. And you wish you could just put something in the bank, because just this week for us, Mother Nature ran away from us. And it's all hands on deck. We're running as hard as we can, but we probably won't catch her until the end of August. We'll have a couple weeks and then it'll be harvest. It's just what it is. It's cool. As a winemaker or as a grower, you could put every waking hour that you have into your vines, and you still have to be commercial and not get a divorce. So you got to keep on doing what you're doing. But it's good work. In this COVID time, the benefit of this is, 6 days a week, I'm coming out here and putting my head and my soul into this thing, and it's like normal. It's only when I turn around that, like, oh, we're in lockdown and oh, my pocketbook's light. But it's all, it's all good. We're doing well, and it's beautiful, and it's the life we chose.
Yeah, that we just got a really good question from Wayne H. That kind of really dives in a little deeper into the wine nerdery. So we'll go there. But he asks, could you please tell us about any practices you use with the goal of improving soil health, and if they've made a difference in your vineyard? For both of you, since you've had your land for a long time, and maybe how that's changed over time. Do you want to start, Jim, or should I throw it back to Jesse?
Jesse, then I can bust in.
All right, Jesse, it's all you.
I think Jim's a big part of the Deep Roots Coalition, the DRC, which is another viticultural organization that promotes non-irrigated vines. So our entire 45 acres is non-irrigated, something that we're proud of. So we're not taking water from our aquifer to water our plants, which has kind of a dual effect. I mean, you're not extracting water from underground, but it also allows and sort of encourages the roots to go a little bit deeper, which I think is an important part for wine growing. Deeper roots, all other things being considered, really, I think has a positive effect on wine quality. And that's something that we do. The lack of tilling, like trying to promote diversity for beneficials. Jim mentioned a few earlier that we try to promote. I mean, I love his analogy of, like, you don't want your vineyard necessarily looking like a Japanese garden where everything's perfect. It's not a golf course. We want to have it maintained properly, but you want to have your vineyard in the right balance of health. And I'm sure a lot of the wine drinkers out there, there's been a lot of terms out there about, like, oh, you want to stress your vines and just stress the vines, and that's how you coax the best fruit out of it. Growing up, that term just drove me crazy, because I've never known any sort of biology that really thrived under super stressful conditions. No flora, no fauna really thrives under that. Really, balance is the key. You don't want to have your grapevines have too many nutrients, but you don't want to be nutrient deficient. You don't want to stress them too much. So balance in your vineyard, grapevines, and I think I'm a better farmer than I am a winemaker, but hopefully if we do those things correctly from the beginning, that's sort of the fundamentals of winemaking. And when you do that really well, I think you set yourself up and tee yourself up for success on the winery quality side.
Got it. Very cool. So then I think I'm going to toss it over to Jim to answer a follow-up question that we've gotten along these same lines from Danielle, who's actually with Washington State Winery Water Quality Permitting. I think I'm reading that correctly. Which practices does your winery use to prevent or mitigate groundwater environmental impacts from processed water? Jim, are you good to take that one on?
Well, I can take it on. There's a lot of different things that people do, and I guess the technical term they use is high biological oxygen demand, which it takes to break stuff down. In Oregon, what DEQ wants us to do is not stick water into a septic system or something like that that's going in the ground. What they really want us to do is get it to break down and then field apply it. And the idea is that you've got a microbial load that's taking this stuff and digesting it, and then you're putting it out there. I think the biggest thing that we do to mitigate problems there is first in the winery when we're processing, doing this stuff, is that we're not putting a whole bunch of crazy crap down the drain, right? We don't add a lot of stuff to the vines. Yes, there's a little higher acid in there, and there are some grape solids, but that's really all that's going down the drain. Grape solids take a little more biological oxygen demand to break down than some things, but so what we do is they gather them, they're centralized, and then running through a bit of air in the system, and then rolling out to an area in the vineyard that we designated early that we would never plant, and it's a long stretch that we apply it to so that it feeds the trees. Actually, I can swing the camera around, and you can see.
Don't drop it over the side.
Hard to know what's going to go here. That tree line right over there, all the way down.
It's a pretty view, Jim, but we can't really hear you.
Sorry, that's probably all right. The tree line over there is basically where the stuff ends up, and as you can see, it's pretty robust. So we don't want point source irrigation or point source pollution. We don't want it rolling off this hill that way. If you go, geez, and look at the soils and things over there, all you get is earthworms and blackberries. That you gotta pull out too, so that you can keep things going. But that's kind of I think the main effect is not put too much in the system. And as a small producer, you got to understand, we're not running a bunch of waste here. It's really expensive. So we will take barrels that have lees, dead yeast cells from the fermentation, and we will rack off those, take the clear wine off, and we'll take what is remaining lees and wine, and we'll settle that again, and we'll probably settle again because it's too damn expensive to throw the wine out. And as long as it's good, it's fine. So you end up with a small amount of effluent, if you will, that goes out there, and everything else is applied. As Jesse said, I'm also I'm on the board of the Deep Roots Coalition, and that's about non-irrigated farming and advocating for that, for grapevines. And so what's an interesting fact is that till 1972, all vines were dryland farmed. It was only in 1972 that even in Napa, they started bringing water in to start doing things. And most people think, oh, it's always happened that way, but it didn't. So that's, I don't know if that answers the question exactly.
Yeah, I think it brings up a lot of really, really, really interesting points about how management practices have changed over time, both from what's the cost-effective balance with land stewardship perspective, as well as what are consumers looking for in the products that they choose to purchase or to buy. So I'm going to switch gears really fast because I keep seeing you guys taking sips of your wine in these bottles that are now, I recognize, in a very precarious situation that I want to hear a little bit about them before they're gone. So can you guys tell me like what you've been, either what you're drinking now or what you've been enjoying maybe during like one of your new quarantine hobbies or activities?
Yeah, well, I think we're both big fans of wine. My wine bill's been pretty high lately. I buy a lot of wine. My wife is curtailed. I'm on wine quarantine purchasing for another month at least. So yeah, I'm definitely drinking more of our own Pinot Noir of late. Yeah, it's like I think wines for us is part of the everyday experience, and I think like having a nice glass of wine at the end of the afternoon is we're all going through some pretty stressful times, and I think anybody in hospitality, which certainly the wine industry is very much a part of, is really I don't want to say struggling, but there are some major challenges for us. And I know, like Jim, like our favorite thing to do is to eat food, great food, and pair it with great wine. And we have a lot of colleagues and friends that are really, this ordeal has been pretty catastrophic for the restaurant industry. And I think like for us, our heart goes out to them quite a bit. So being able to share wine with people is maybe a light salve for some of those concerns and those challenges. And that's kind of how I operate every day. And I think trying to find a nice bottle of wine to look forward to in the evening to share is that's something I look forward to every day.
That sounds lovely.
For me, that wine is wreaking havoc on my waistline. I could give you the size file, but I don't know if I will. And what are we drinking? We're drinking, this is called Glass. It's a white Pinot Noir, clearly. It's a rosé. Kind of tastes like a lighter alcohol margarita. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty stoked about this wine, I have to say right now. I've been building this for 19 years, and this is probably the best thing that I've done. And it's so typical, or so perfect for this time of year. And then this is like our core Willamette Valley Pinot Noir that called Vespanet. So how do we roll through that? I just bought, I don't know, a bunch of crazy French weird wines from out in the country, and then I just bought a whole bunch of Albariños and weird Spanish wines and some Nebbiolo the other day. And I don't share that bill and the accounting with my wife, so I don't get sanctioned.
Smart man. Well, I'm looking at the time, and I've realized we've gone a little over, but I am going to ask one more question, and then also, but before I do, just in follow up to what you guys were sharing in terms of what you're drinking, why and why you're drinking it, just so all the attendees on the webinar can know, at the end of the live portion, we're going to throw up some special promo codes that both Jim and Jesse have put together for attendees to use to get some nice deals on their wines. Because honestly, like, I have bottles of theirs and it's real good. So it comes strongly recommended. And like Jesse and Jim said, if we all could use a little goodness in our lives right now, and their wine is really good. So we'll share those at the end of the webinar, and it'll be in a follow-up email to all the registrants. And thank you, Jesse and Jim, for sharing those and making that available to folks in our community. So I think the last question I'm going to pose to both of you is what's one thing you'd want attendees to know either about wine or about water? And we'll use that as our ending before we sign off. Who wants to go first?
Jesse, I'm thinking.
See you, Jesse.
Oh, to me? Okay. All right. Well, the wind's blowing here. I think we got another cloud coming over. Like in terms of like what we like, to be known for is, I think really our best asset is, of course, our vineyard sites and how we farm diligently and, make sustainable grapes and crops every year to harvest. But really, I think our biggest asset as a company is our palates and our sort of critical eye towards making wine. We if it's not good enough for my family and the wines that's good enough for me to serve in my stems and on my table, it's not good enough for us to bottle. And it really doesn't come down oftentimes to X's and O's and profitability. It comes down to, is the wine good enough? And I've never blended a barrel or a tank of wine that I did because I thought it would make us more profitable. I only blend because I think it makes a better wine. And I think that's a real testament to kind of the ethics that my folks done when he started in 1987 with nothing. I mean, they were here. I often say my folks, we didn't just create a brand. We literally helped create a category called Willamette Valley and Oregon Pinot Noir, which wasn't the case in the mid 80s. And to see how far it's come and producers like Jim and a whole host of our colleagues that have helped drive this industry forward in ways that were unimaginable. The onset of our industry has just been an incredible evolution and huge paradigm shift to see from where we've come from to where we are here today in 2020, making, I don't even think arguably, but most definitely some of the best examples of some of the best varietals on the planet with Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Gris. It's really a testament to our latitude, to our soil types, to our region, and to the people who make the wines here. And I'm just, I couldn't be more happy and emboldened by the people around me, and our frankly, our terroir, a French term for the place, the site, the people, the soils. It's just, it's a wonderful mandate to have, and I think our wines are without a doubt world class.
Great, thanks, Jesse. All right, Jim, have you had enough time to think?
Yeah, I'm just barely thinking. So here's the funny thing with me. Like we enjoy. Oops, almost lost another bottle. The thing about wine, and I think it's also true of water in certain circumstances, is you enjoy it in times of celebration. When I think about a place, if I wanted to live anywhere in the world, and I've lived a number of places in the world, it needs four things. It needs mountains, it needs water, it needs good bread, and it needs wine. And I love the most of all is the intersection of being on a river or swimming in a lake and being there and doing and grabbing the recreation aspect of the water and having wine with friends around it, the celebratory quality of that. And it's my favorite form of recreation, and food and wine, and occasionally I drink water, particularly in the morning. It's that intersection of that celebration with friends and family, and that's kind of the thing. That's the biggest thing. If I was taking away any of it, it's that intersection of those things. It couldn't happen without water. Again, the wine is 86% water. It didn't fall from the sky. And then if I didn't pass it on down the hill with it, if I passed it with bad quality, then those nice fish and my daughter in a raft would not be enjoying as much. So that's kind of the jam for me.
That's great. Well, then I will cheers to both of you for the days that we'll get to be on the river again someday. It will be.
Salud.
Cheers. So with that, I'm going to sign off. It's been wonderful to see both of you, Jim and Jesse. I know I saw you just a few months ago, but it feels like years. And thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight, sharing your wine and your vineyards with us, and for everything that you do as stewards to both the land that you work on, the water that you use, and then the community that you've built around you as well. It's something that I think gives all of us some perspective on what's needed for resiliency, both in the world and at home. So thank you. Hope you all have wonderful nights, and we'll see you again soon.
Here's thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Y'all enjoy your evening.
Yep, we'll see you again. Cheers, everybody.
Play hard.